Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Susanne Wagner, and it is a pleasure to participate in this virtual conference. I will be discussing the benefits and impact of e-blocks on particularly preschool, but also primary school education in the public school system of Mexico. One of the challenges that teachers and students have faced over the last 2 decades is to modernize education in such a way that it allows students to improve on basic academic skills while also being prepared for the challenges they face in the real world. This has led to a profound transformation in the classroom environment and learning approaches. If we look at this slide, one of the fundamental changes that has been achieved is that we have moved from a teacher-centered classroom to a student-centered classroom. This is really important because we have found that when it is teacher-centered, students simply don't learn. Student-centered, however, means that we have to find different methodological approaches to teaching so that more of the students with their different learning styles and abilities can truly learn. So environments have to be multisensorial, they have to have multipath progression. It means that they can go from by different means to achieve the same learning goal, that we use multimedia approaches, and of course, that we allow students to work collaboratively, since these are skills and the ability to work with others, cooperate and collaborate are extremely important in everyday and real life situations. We also have gone from where the teacher is an instructor who provides information to information being interchanged between students and the instructor or the teacher, as well as using different sources that can strengthen really students' knowledge and understanding of materials. One of the things that we also know now is that passive learning environments are not fostering true learning. Students have to be active participants in their own learning, and we do this through exploratory, inquiry-based or experimental classroom situations where they can actually be immersed in what they're supposed to be learning. The other part of it is knowledge alone, academic content alone, is not what is going to allow students to learn. They have to be able to develop skills such as critical thinking and make informed decisions, and also give responses that are planned. What does this mean? If we, for example, ask a classroom how much is 2 + 2, it is a reactive response. But if we ask them to think about responses, to really dig into themselves to find these responses, then we have more of a proactive or planned response. For example, in Mexico, in English language learning classrooms, I often say to teachers, if you ask students every day, how are you? They, by rote learning and memory, will answer, fine, thank you, and you. But if you start asking them, well, do you feel better today than you did yesterday? Then they have to think about it, they have to process the information, and they have to be able to use the information in a different setting, applying it with thought. And this, of course, leads to greater academic retention. And lastly, what we also know is that content and how we teach has to be relevant students. And it has to be relevant in an authentic, real-world context that they can identify with. That also means that traditional textbooks, traditional materials often do not relate to students because, hey, they're taken from, I don't know, Mexico City, and the students are sitting in an urban, in a rural area or in an indigenous context. So we have to adapt and be able to make these materials relatable. One essential aspect of this preparation includes the use of technology, of course. We can achieve many of these new learning environments by the use of technology, both to allow students to achieve high levels of digital literacy, which they need in today's world, and to ensure that technology acts as a support system in the learning processes. Technology, however, and we have to be very clear on this, is not a solve-all for everything. As we have seen during these last few months, and with the need to bring education to students in their homes while they're in quarantine, at the end of the day, technology represents a tool and a delivery mechanism. the teacher still plays the fundamental role in ensuring that students achieve the proposed learning goals. As such, educational technologies provide a means by which teachers can offer a wider and inclusive teaching approach that permits more students to learn. This has been stated by Eric Thompson, who says, "We all have strengths and weaknesses. In an education environment, the important thing is to incorporate multiple teaching approaches to reinforce essential learning goals in such a way that all students have an opportunity to learn, regardless of their individual strengths and weaknesses." And I would add to that, regardless of their learning styles, their personal learning styles, their personal cognitive structures, or their personal experiences. One highly effective technology that can help foment educational goals and help students learn is eBlocks. It's geared toward early learners, preschool, and depending on your curriculum of your country, for the first 2 years of elementary schools. And it promotes student learning specifically in reading and writing and mathematics. In the case of Mexico, it allows students to learn reading and writing in Spanish, and to learn English and reading and writing in English, or mathematics in English, and also language in general. In other countries, Portuguese is also an option. eBlocks allow students to improve their language and mathematical skills through interactive gamification that makes learning enjoyable. We can see here on the screens that the students are looking at, all of them have different images. And what this is, it's like a video game where they have problems that they have to solve. It can be in English, it can be in mathematics or Spanish, and that helps them develop these skills. And they enjoy it, just like they would a video game. Additionally, because eBlocks is used by teams of students working together, it also fosters soft skills and the socio-emotional development and values orientation in students. We know that students need to not only learn how to add and subtract or how to use language and write and use grammar properly, they also need to be able to develop emotionally, socially, psychologically, and have strong values. Thus, eBlocks is an integrative tool that not only educates, but prepares students for the interaction with others in real-world situations. We can see that from these items that eBlocks really promotes students' natural way of learning. They can use their innate abilities to solve the problems and challenges that they face through eBlocks. They can model the behavior of their parents or teachers or the people that surround them. They can experiment and work with a focalized trial and error system, which is also important because we know that students learn much more, we all learn much more by our mistakes rather than when things go right. And they can search for answers that satisfy their natural intellectual curiosity. And most importantly, they learn by using their 5 senses. They can listen, see, touch, taste, and smell. This is really, really important because these are all stimuli. We go back to the first slide. This is these multisensorial stimuli that allow students to gain greater understanding of what it is that they're interacting with in the learning process. And as such, then, eBlocks really provides an auditive, visual, kinesthetic learning with the interaction between the concrete and the abstract. The images that students see on their screens are concrete, and from there they can then go and develop connections with other learning, with other knowledge they have, and form abstract thought and abstract considerations. As we can see from these slides, eBlocks allows students to work on specific language or mathematical challenges in teams and where they interact to solve problems. The program takes them on learning excursions, I like to call them, to fascinating places with characters, animals, and natural habitats that open their imagination and heighten their intellectual curiosity. Language learning is achieved through stories, songs, and word problems. while mathematical skills are attained by solving problems that require logic and analysis. And if we look at these slides, and you can see, for example, in the slide that is to your left, second from top, we see a mummy and we see an image that represents Cleopatra. And what this does is it also, for example, take Mexico. So it takes the students on this journey to Egypt, where the teacher, and again, the teacher plays a fundamental role, where the teacher then can say to the students, look, this is what's happening in Egypt, and can bring them fascinating stories that are added on or complement what eBlocks offers, and then have them do things like comparing and contrasting the experience of Egypt with Mexico. And this obviously gives it relevance, it makes it interesting, it motivates students. So we also then have, through eBlocks, we can take it from Bloom's revised taxonomy, which says if you only read or listen to something, you have approximately 20% retention after 2 weeks. If you read something, you have 20, 30, 40% retention and so forth. But the more you interact with your own learning, you can achieve higher levels of retention and understanding of what you're learning. With eBlocks, we also address this issue that approximately 30% of students learn visually and 30% learn by listening. On the other hand, 40% of students learn through physical interaction with the subject matter, by doing, touching, and participating in their own learning. This is really important, but 40% is still not enough. We need to achieve greater learning. And so what eBlocks does, it combines in an active learning and participatory learning environment, seeing, listening, speaking, and doing, which allows approximately 90%, or gives the opportunity of a 90% retention and learning achievement by students. This is what we need to do, and this is what Bloom's revised taxonomy says, that if students interact in multiple ways with the subject that they are learning, they will retain more, and they can achieve these 90% levels of retention and learning. This is extraordinarily important. Therefore, eBlocks provides an ideal tool for teachers to promote learning in setting that truly enhances students' academic and cognitive growth, while simultaneously ensuring that the educational setting forms students in an integrated fashion. Again, students are sentient beings. Emotions and knowledge play and interact with one another. This is extremely important. We cannot allow to leave the socio-emotional development or the values orientation to one side. So it allows learners to use multiple intelligences. It enhances learning through concrete images and scenarios, and not just through abstract words. It applies the constructivist model. Students solve problems by using their own experiences, their own cognitive structure to resolve these things in a collaborative fashion. It does have the multisensory approach, as we already stated, and it optimizes learning as it motivates students and captures their interest. They're fascinated by it. They love working with eBlocks. And since students have to work together and cooperate and collaborate to be able to solve these problems and advance as a group in their language and mathematical learning, eBlocks also ensures that they gain invaluable soft skills, such as the ability to communicate, negotiate, work as a team, listen actively to others, lead, organize, and be disciplined. These are some of the skills that we talk about as the 21st century skills. Again, we cannot be successful in life if we don't also hone these skills. And eBlocks, and we've seen this time and time again in Mexico, help students begin to hone these skills at an early age. So this means that they also develop socio-emotionally as they're put in a situation where certain behaviors are appropriate and others not, and where they learn that inappropriate behaviors have consequences and do not optimize results. Additionally, As students communicate with one another and use their experiences and real-life circumstances as they interact with others, and with the scenarios provided by eBlocks, teachers are able to glimpse what their home situations are like and what circumstances surround them. Teachers can then use the information to provide important guidance on values, behaviors, and socio-emotional needs to students. When the students sit with the eBlocks and they're in that group and they're looking at images, the teachers will hear, and they have to really act as facilitators and listen to what the students are talking about. And they will suddenly hear that a student says, oh, look at this figure or this character. This reminds me of so-and-so in my real life scenario. But here in eBlocks, this is a good character. But in my life, it's a bad character. And then the teacher can explore what the student is talking about and really provide that guidance on a socio-emotional values level, or if need be, then also seek the additional help that that student maybe needs to deal with this situation. And this means that we also begin to integrate very much this idea of the complete integral formation of students. And this has been a focus that Mexico, like so many other nations, has begun to incorporate into its educational policies. And so that education does not only provide academic content, but also integrates the socio-emotional development and values orientation of students. These are reinforced in the new education reform that we have here in Mexico, which is of the New Mexican School, or La Nueva Escuela Mexicana. And as many nations, Mexico also faces increasing challenges that require a strong socio-emotional development and values orientation in students because they're facing increasing challenges with violence, crime, and other insecurities that students witness on a daily basis. So it's of utmost importance that they learn to manage their emotions in a productive and appropriate manner, and that they form a healthy set of values that will allow them to thrive and prosper despite the realities that surround them. If we look at this slide, what this means is that education cannot just be that content, but that it is that holistic approach that provides that emotional, social, knowledge-based and skills-based learning scenario. eBlocks does this. We have seen it time and time again. It combines the heart and the soul and the brain of the students. And the realities that students do face and teachers face in countries like Mexico and many, many more require that teaching learning processes are adapted to the specific circumstances that certain communities live in, which include, amongst others, and unfortunately, we face this more and more in many countries in the world, but Mexico definitely has a problem with this, is our high levels of conflict, criminality, violence, and insecurity and uncertainty. This means that teachers truly must focus on providing a holistic, comprehensive, and humanistic teaching approach that promotes students' socio-emotional and socio-psychological development and their acquisition of values that transcend beyond the classroom, values that they can take home, values that they can keep as they grow older. With the creation of differentiated learning experiences through educational technologies such as eBlocks, students understand that they can achieve their goals and objectives in life and that they are not automatically destined to failure or repeating the errors of other members of their communities. One of the things that of course happens in these dire circumstances is that students often feel that they are destined to failure, that no matter what they do, they will continue living in the same circumstances. However, when they are taught through eBlocks and then they achieve and are able to solve problems and they have this sense of satisfaction because they've done well and eBlocks actually tells them, good job, then they start learning that they may have other aspirations, that they could gain different things and do different things with their lives, and that maybe they are particularly good at math or they're particularly good at language, and that there are other alternatives for them. With e-blocks, teachers can incorporate a conscious transmission of concepts that relate to values, soft skills, and socio-emotional development in their classes, so that students are fully prepared to meet the challenges faced by their communities, and so that students have these healthy aspirations regarding their futures. With e-blocks, teachers foster students' potential by integrating techniques and strategies that include clearly defined and purposeful activities. As a result, students grow both within the emotional and the rational realms. And I think this is really important. We cannot just have a student that is extraordinarily well informed in the academic realm, has all the answers, but is socio-emotionally weak. We need to combine these two. In the past, many innovations have been included at higher education levels, such as secondary school or high school or university levels. Nevertheless, I would argue, and I think this is extremely important too, that if the foundations for students are not set at an early age, their chances of having a solid academic grasp of essential subjects like language and mathematics, and their ability to develop socio-emotionally and with strong value orientation are greatly reduced. We need to set those foundations. I've also always argued, if you want to teach students English as a foreign language, they should start as early as they can, because that gives them that solid foundation and allows them to use that in future life and keep that and retain that. It is also important that students learn at an early age how to interact with one another and to develop and heighten those competencies deemed essential for the 21st century. In Mexico, particularly within the public school system, e-blocks has allowed teachers to integrate social abilities and the skills in their teaching and competencies such as soft skills, while not undermining the importance of a solid academic foundation in mathematics and language. And in the case of Mexico, again, it would be in Spanish and in English. Additionally, as teachers face students with different characteristics, learning styles, and learning needs, in large classrooms, and often these classrooms are of 30, 40 students that require constant attention, e-blocks has promoted new ways of delivering learning to students. What we have seen is that while in the past, teachers at preschool and in early years of elementary school have primarily used a whole class approach to teaching, with e-blocks and by giving them some tips, obviously, or training them, and when integrated successfully, they have also begun using rotational instructional systems by which students are grouped together to perform different activities at the same time. This creates a more dynamic, integrated, and inclusive learning environment in which students have an opportunity to experience different learning activities that promote learning of specific concepts using a variety of methodologies. If we look at this, at the picture that is on your left upper corner, what we see is a traditional classroom where often the teacher is up front and where the teacher will ask students questions and they answer and they're happy to interact. Once in a while, that's important too. But when you have these large classrooms, and particularly also thinking about kindergarten age children or first and second year students of elementary school, they have very short attention spans. And so a rotational system allows them to be performing for 10 minutes, 5 minutes, different activities. So you can have, for example, one group of students that's counting stones or natural elements that they find in the environment around their classroom, while another group is learning how to add through the use of e-blocks. And then they rotate. And this means that the students are participating in different activities with the same learning goal. And this is much, much more effective. And if we can look at the picture that's at your bottom right corner, what you will see is also students are doing different things at the same time. It does not detract from learning. On the contrary, it helps the teacher to be more of a facilitator and to also spend then more quality time with individual and smaller groups of students. And so the learning is enhanced. Lastly, and this is actually a really indirect consequence that we have seen through e-blogs, and this is because public schools in Mexico often do not have the resources to include e-blogs at every educational level or in every classroom. By installing one or a few e-blogs within the schools, teachers have also learned to cooperate with one another and to communicate better about their experiences, and they've been able to interchange ideas while ensuring that a majority of students benefit from e-blogs. As a result, teachers have become more aware of the interconnectedness of learning, and they now understand much more clearly that their teaching and learning processes have to coincide with the curricular demand of their colleagues one education level up. Often teachers forget that when a student reaches high school, this student is a product from kindergarten. If we give those solid foundations in kindergarten, then that student will thrive and succeed more in following years. And e-blogs, by having to communicate, coordinate, cooperate, collaborate with one another, has given these teachers a clear understanding of how interconnected their teaching is to the teaching of all of their colleagues at the different levels. So now, through that, educational curricula have become more integrated and run seamlessly between kindergarten 1 and kindergarten 2, or kindergarten 3 and elementary 1, for example. And this has led to many, many more positive results in student learning, in academic achievements. So, as I said, e-blogs to me is a very effective educational tool. And we can see from the statistics that academically it really helps students. We look at these statistics, and those students that used e-blogs did very much more, or had more positive results than their colleagues or their peers in control groups. And it really helps preschoolers and students of the first 2 years of elementary school to achieve heightened results in mathematics, language, in the case of Mexico, Spanish, and also in learning English. More importantly, however, I think, academic achievement is good, but you can achieve that through a variety of means. But what e-blogs really does is that because of the way that it is set up, it helps students to develop their soft skills and become more prepared for the real world and the challenges they will face as they grow up, by helping them with their socio-emotional needs and allowing them to strengthen their value systems. This benefits not only the students as individuals, but also helps entire communities as these children become teenagers and adults. And I think I really want to stress this point. When we can prepare students socio-emotionally and give them strong values that they can adhere to, they contribute positively, first to their homes, but then also to their communities. These students, these children, the preschoolers we have now, are going to be our future leaders. They are the ones that are going to be responsible for our economic development, for our political development in all of our countries. We need to make sure that they have these solid foundations, that they are able to deal with their social and emotional aspects, that they are and have strong value orientation, and that they will stand up to these challenges we are facing with criminality, violence, insecurities, and so forth. Furthermore, in our post-pandemic environments, and this enormous, enormous question we are facing today on how to bring students back to school in a safe and healthy manner, e-blogs can be used for social distancing purposes, because we can take measures with e-blogs. We can have groups work from the traditional 6 to 8 students per e-blog and reduce that to 2 or 4 students that work together on one of those e-blog structures. We can also, if we have to, take the e-block and move it to another space, and then free space within the classroom so that smaller groups can work together, and that teachers can truly use rotational activities to ensure that more limited and thus safer interactions between students are taking place. So in that sense, e-blocks also has an important function within the post-pandemic world. Lastly, one of the great benefits of e-blocks, particularly in nations such as Mexico, where public education is guaranteed even in the most remote and isolated areas of the country where internet access is very limited or non-existent, e-blocks works offline. Once installed, no internet is needed, which is fantastic. So what you see here, what they do is the programs are loaded, and so once installed, the teachers can use those programs, can use those challenges time and time again, and don't need any internet. And this, for a country such as Mexico, and I know that there are many, many other countries in the world that face the same situation, is really important, because we often are not able to provide this all-inclusive education and enough resources to areas that are in more isolated regions, more forgotten rural communities, because of a lack of internet. So this too is extremely important. So from everything I have said and from all the work we have done with e-blocks in Mexico over the last few years, we have definitely been able to see benefits and positive impact on preschool and elementary students. It also helps teachers to improve on their teaching practices while providing an enjoyable, motivating, and interesting learning environment to students. As a matter of fact, what we have seen is that students come to school and they want to work with e-blocks. They want to learn more maths. They want to learn more English, or they want to improve on their Spanish writing and reading skills. And this is really important. And this also gives, it's easier for teachers to work with them because they are motivated. And hopefully through the stories that they hear from e-blocks, or the stories that they themselves can upload and edit and make relatable to their circumstances, it also fosters lifelong learning through reading, through literature, and all these things that we know are important for the intellectual, academic, and personal growth of students. Definitely, to me, without a doubt, and with these combinations of the academic content and academic solid foundations that eBlock sets, together with that development of those soft skills, the interaction with others, the communication and collaboration that students achieve, the negotiation, leadership, discipline, all of these things that they have to form, as well as appropriate behaviors that foster and strengthens their value systems, I definitely have no doubt that eBlocks will continue to be an effective learning tool in this post-pandemic era in Mexico. And I think it's really important that we utilize eBlocks in as many schools as we can to help the teachers have an effective tool, but also to help the students really have an interactive, dynamic way of learning that can really, really forge those solid foundations that they need for the rest of their lives. Thank you very much. Muchísimas gracias a todos. And above all else, keep safe. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Amazing job.
We got through it.
Yeah, it was fantastic, honestly.
Yes, in one go, you don't see that much.
Yeah, great.
And
great.
I think I managed within the 30 minutes, right?
36-ish.
Well, but the 36-ish was with our initial chit-chat, right?